Well, hello, everybody. Um, it is exactly 1:01 p.m. My time here in California. This is my first live stream. I have done over 150 one-on-one calls in SuperPeer, so this is a little bit weird for me to be speaking to the internet. But regardless, I appreciate that you guys are in the chat. And so if there are questions along the way, feel free to ping me. Of course, as I dither between my presentation and what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to show you. Oh, that's interesting, actually, now that I think about it. I will be attempting to sort of keep the chat going and seeing what you guys are talking about, but I'm also kind of going to just be like monologuing it and winging it. I'm also going to give people, 3 to 4 minutes to show up and get situated, get started. I'm planning to present for anywhere from, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes, I think. I have to find my, what's it called? My agenda. That's my agenda, so I have a cheat sheet, so I know what I'm talking about. Now, Veerly, okay, great. Well, 10 p.m., thank you for staying up for me. Yeah, Brandon, it's basically, more or less like YouTube Live. I've never done YouTube Live before, so I'm a sort of live streaming virgin. So go easy on me. What's up, Tim? How's it going? Marcus, hey, how are you? Fateh, I've got a bunch of the SuperPeer team here as well. I'm really happy to see those folks. Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. If you want to just moderate for me, feel free to just jump in the chat and say hello and where you're from. I am coming to you from Oakland, California. So it's still pretty nice weather out here. It's not quite too cold yet. Rob, why can't you see or hear anything? Cool, lots of folks from all over the place. India, Mexico, Turkey, the Netherlands, Chicago. Love it. Yeah, Fatah, I understand. I was there for, there was another live stream this morning. By the way, for those of you who are just joining in, SuperPeer is essentially kind of a new platform for live streams. So far, they launched in March. I was part of their launch on Product Hunt, and they're really focused on kind of one-on-one interactions, similar to this, but of course, without a live audience. And just yesterday, they announced their launch of channels, which is live streaming, which is what this is. And so this is my first attempt at this. So yes, David, thank you. Any theme, I would say breadth is the theme to my bar. I will actually show you a little trick for how I use Alfred with my collection there. So let's see. Good feedback, seeming. That's good, thank you. Okay, let's see, one more minute. What I'm going to do, let me move this over here. Sorry, I'm doing some window management and stuff, kind of figuring things out. Also, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be presenting Keynote in a window, and then I'm going to be using Alfred in the Alfred window. And so this is the first time that I'm going to be streaming my desktop. So I don't know how this is going to go. Stephen, interesting. For those of you who are not seeing anything, what browser are you guys using and what operating system? That might be helpful for debugging. I am on Big Sur, so Big Sur is working. I can see myself in the live stream. It seems like some other folks can see me too, so that's good. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay as well. It was super wide. Yeah, you guys can see my little mic thing here, but that's fine. Hopefully the sound is good. Okay, well, we're about 5 minutes in. So before I get any going, I'm sorry, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just gonna get going, how about that? Okay, so let me see, I'm gonna share my desktop, which is a terrifying thought to do this on the internet, but so be it. Let's see how this goes. I'm gonna move you guys over here. Actually, I'm gonna move you over here. Let's do it that way. Okay. I believe my screen is shared. Let me pull this out a little bit. Okay. Let me just get a confirmation that you guys can see my screen for those of you who are here and able to see things. Yes, no? Okay. Devram, great. Thank you. Thank you for that boost of attention and reassurance. Okay, so I'm going to start now. I know a lot of folks are going to want to just dive into like the nitty-gritty details of my productivity hacks for Alfred, but I promise you I will get there. But I always find it very useful and important to understand the history of computing a little bit, to understand how we got to where we are, and to put things into historical perspective and context. So with that, this whole talk on hacking productivity with Alfred has to go back to the dawn of the computing era with a person who I actually once met. His name is Doug Engelbart. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with him, this is one of the forefathers of computing and human-computer interaction. He worked down at Stanford at SRI in Silicon Valley and was instrumental in coming up with so many necessary and important ways for people to interact with computers. One of the things that he is probably best known for is this document that he prepared called Augmenting Human Intellect, which was a conceptual framework. And this sort of laid the groundwork for HCI, human-computer interaction, and user experience design as we know it, all the way back in the 40s and 50s, in fact. And what's sort of important to note about this is that a lot of the things that we think are innovative or novel and interesting that we do today and see on Product Hunt all the time, or that I hunt all the time, actually, again, got their start way back then. This is Dave Evans back in the 60s at SRI. He was a contemporary of Doug Engelbart, a collaborator. And one of the things that's important to note about this setup here, you can see it's a pretty familiar looking experience, right? A person on a computer display with a keyboard, is that they actually had more advanced technology back then in some ways. They had what was called a corded keyboard. And so on the left-hand side, you can sort of see, you can imagine that those individual keys are a little bit like the keys in an organ. My dad was actually, he played the organ in church, and I learned a lot about like keyboards and stuff like that. And anyways, of course, you can use these keys as modifiers to change the way that other keys behave. You can also see a very early version of the mouse, of course, which is Doug Engelbart's invention as well. And I just want you to keep these ideas in mind. This is how computing was being done in the 60s in a lab in Stanford in California. And if you look down at your keyboard, things really haven't changed all that much. So the fundamentals are pretty solid and pretty consistent. In fact, for some of you, your keyboard may look something a little bit like this. And so the notion of what we're trying to do is take an idea or a command or an intention or some goal that we have in our minds that we want the computer to do, and to try to figure out a way or a sequence of incantations to get the computer to do the thing that we want it to do, right? That's kind of what HCI, human-computer interaction, is all about. It's about thinking about how humans express ideas and how we conceptualize them, and then to transform them into a sequence of steps that a computer can do on our behalf. And so when we're talking about Alfred, we are talking about essentially providing a way that's like that corded keyboard, that modifier, to essentially allow us to change the way that the computer behaves by telling it exactly what we want it to do. And so, of course, the thing that we've figured out is that if you use a modifier key with another key, we can change the behavior of the normal function of that button. And so in this case, we use something like command space to activate these launchers. And the launchers have become, I would say, incredibly popular certainly this year, maybe last year as well. I'm going to show you something real quick here. I actually curate a list of launchers on Product Hunt. You can find this on my profile under my collections. And I mean, just so far, I've got 20 different launchers that I found, in the course of, researching this stuff. So they're becoming very popular in a way because software is also becoming more complex, and also users are becoming more sophisticated in the things that they want to do. We also are moving towards automation and towards increasingly dense software that it doesn't really make sense to go through a tree menu to find the things that we want it to do. We want to just tell it, especially if these are things that we do over and over again. But I want to take you back a little bit further to the origin of at least launching and launchers on the Mac, pre-Spotlight. And that starts with a piece of software called Quicksilver. I'd love to see, there's no polls, of course. You guys are still doing tech support there, bummer. Okay, David, you just launched, huh? There's no polls yet on SuperPeer, but I'd love to know if any of these apps are products that you guys have used in the past, and if they're familiar to you. Quicksilver was one that I fell in love with, and I used for quite some time without really knowing much about the shadowy background behind where it came from. It just sort of appeared on the scene, and this was probably in the 2005, 2006, we're talking quite a long time ago. And the crazy thing about Quicksilver is that Quicksilver coincides with my arrival in Silicon Valley, actually. Because back then, in the 2005 to 2007 time period of the social web and the early open source web, when I first got to Silicon Valley, I was involved in the launch of Firefox. And through that community, met a bunch of really interesting people that were building stuff in hacker houses in kind of the hills of Silicon Valley. And one of the events that I would go to was this event called Super Happy Dev House, or SHDH. And I was the one that did the posters for these events. And so this is a poster that I did for, let's see, this looks like the 9th event. And so this was April 29th, 2006, I think. You can find these on my Flickr stream. Greg, awesome to hear that. Yeah, you also got that. And so anyways, I went to these events, Super Happy Dev House, and I've been going for quite some time, whatever. And lo and behold, one day I was there, and either there was a lightning talk or there was something else, and I ended up meeting this guy. And this is Nicholas Jitkoff. And it turned out that Nicholas Jitkoff is the human version of the programmer hacker Alcor, and Alcor was the developer of Quicksilver. So lo and behold, I met this guy who had built this amazing software for me. And it was sort of like one of those star-studded moments that seems to happen, or at least used to happen a lot more in Silicon Valley, where you kind of meet people behind the apps that you're using every day, and this mystery was suddenly solved. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because the philosophy behind Quicksilver was to act without doing. It's sort of probably a Chinese or Asian proverb, I'm not sure the origin, but the idea was to be able to communicate again to the computer in a way that didn't require you to really think or put any effort in. You would just hit that keyboard shortcut, tell the computer what you wanted to do, and it would sort of figure it out, or would reveal to you what it could do. Now, here's why this is significant. Because Nicholas Jitkoff ended up being essentially acqui-hired by Google and ended up becoming the lead designer of Google. So these launchers and this launching paradigm that I'm telling you about actually is the very thing that informed Google search. Right? Mind blown. Like, I just want you to marinate on that for a little bit to understand why this is significant and why it's important. The very search engine that is used by billions of people every day was informed by this little app that was created by this independent developer in Silicon Valley all the way back in 2005 and 6. And so back to Quicksilver, I've sort of talked at a high level of what it is, but here's what it looked like. So you might remember this UI paradigm from back in the day. Again, it was a launcher. You'd activate it, and then you'd start typing. And you could start typing and search in iTunes, back before it was called Apple Music. And you also had, what was different in this launcher was essentially like a tuple relationship. In other words, a relationship of three things. So this paradigm also informed some of the work that I did on something called activity streams, where we were modeling an actor or an object, and then a verb, and then some indirect object, right? So in this case, you might do a search in a certain context. I'm talking about the bottom left here. Searching on Google. What am I searching for, as opposed to, let's say, looking up an image or looking up something else, and then the thing that you're actually searching for. So there was a way of kind of setting a context or a domain, and then figuring out the verb, and then figuring out the thing that you wanted to use for the interaction. And that was a little bit of a different paradigm back then. But I think it's useful to sort of understand that background. The other thing that Quicksilver had that was really cool back in the day was a number of different themes or styles. I'm going to talk a bit about that when it comes to Alfred. But just note that this is kind of like where this stuff started, with different visual styles that, at least at the time, I thought were super sexy. After Jikoff was acqui-hired by Google, Quicksilver quickly kind of fell into disrepair and just really wasn't being developed anymore. And so I looked for an alternative and ended up finding LaunchBar. And I used LaunchBar for quite some time. It was never quite as fast and kind of didn't work quite as intuitively as Quicksilver did for me. But nonetheless, it was sort of this interregnum where I was using this product. And then eventually, and we've started to see more of these, I guess, switchers and commands kind of appear in different contexts. So of course, Slack, which sort of is a productized version of IRC, added in the switcher with Command K. And also, I don't know if you know this, but if you use Command Shift K, that'll bring up your direct messages. So being able to move through software very seamlessly using either keyboard shortcuts or by, again, executing commands in some kind of launcher. Beyond Slack, of course, we've also seen that in Superhuman. And I would say Superhuman has done a really good job of popularizing this and getting it out there as one of the core drivers, I think, of this software. I want to pull up this blog post by Gabby Goldberg. Let me pull this up. I'll pop this in the chat also. She wrote this earlier this year in September. And I thought it was a really kind of great reintroduction of some of the concepts here. She talked about it as the command line comeback. And it's interesting because this is something that I wrote about quite some time ago, which I called conversational commerce. And I'll share this link too. Sort of two versions of this post. But the idea being that increasingly we are going to start talking to our software, both verbally as well as textually. And so, of course, this is an image from her, but the idea was really trying to figure out ways of, do I have a good example in here? I don't. Let me go to the more recent version of this post. Showing how we were going to become more conversationally integrated, I guess, with our software. Okay, this is taking too long. Anyways, so you sort of get the idea with what's happening with Superhuman. And so again, Superhuman has kind of massively expanded, I think, the visibility of these types of launchers. And now you're seeing them appear in all sorts of different apps. Okay, which brings me to Alfred and the core topic of today's conversation. So first, again, there's no polls, but how many of you guys, if you just want to say maybe like a +1 in the chat, if you are using Alfred today, I'd be just great to sort of get a sense for that. I imagine most of you are, that's why you're here. But this, of course, is the general preference pane for Alfred. This is how it starts. I use Command Space. I will show you kind of, this is, I'm pulling up Alfred right now. And let me go through this a little bit. One of the things that you want to do, of course, is set Alfred to launch at login and then set an Alfred hotkey. I think default, it might actually use Option Space, but I use Command Space. Awesome. Great to see those +1s rolling in. And of course, Alfred provides search. So this is sort of an alternative to Spotlight. Spotlight has gotten quite good over the last several years, but it's pretty narrow in terms of what it tries to do. And maybe there's a reason for that, but let's just say that, that's one of the competitors. Alfred also provides clipboard management. Now, I use something called Paste. I love Paste. Paste is a great replacement. In fact, just an interesting anecdote, with Big Sur, Paste was broken, or at least Sync was broken for me. And so for literally a week, I was unable to use Paste, and it forced me to use Alfred's clipboard. And I found it okay. Like it's pretty good. What the clipboard buffer allows you to do essentially is to copy multiple things into memory, to store them, and then retrieve them using search. Now, the reason why that's valuable, of course, if you sort of imagine your long-term and short-term memory, what a clipboard buffer does is it sort of expands your short-term working memory to almost like an infinite number of things. So you know that you copied and pasted your, girlfriend's address or something like that, because you're doing gifts for the holidays, but you've already copied and pasted 12 things since then. Well, obviously, clipboard buffer allows you to keep those things in memory. The other thing that, and maybe actually there's a clip for this. No, there's another thing that I'll show you too called Snippets. And Snippets is a way of having a more persistent store that is separate from the clipboard management. But there's some interesting features that both of those things have. The thing that I will get to today is talking about Alfred workflows. And I was pretty intimidated, honestly, by workflows for a long time. I found a bunch of them. I didn't really know how to make them. The interface is a little bit opaque, I would say. It's not the most, especially with things like Zapier and other tools that kind of allow you to string together a sequence of, commands or, hook together APIs. Alfred requires you to do a lot more heavy lifting. And maybe in future versions, it'll become easier, but nonetheless, you still have to probably get into the code in order to make things connect to like web service and things like that. Nonetheless, there are ways of both building workflows that I think enable even non-developers like myself to use them effectively, and then to just kind of like hack things together. In order to use workflows and a number of other features, and I think actually maybe the next thing will show you this, you will need a Power Pack license. And so essentially there's a free version of Alfred that allows anybody to try it and use it to get the basics. But if you really want to get the value out of it, I highly recommend getting the Power Pack license. If you're going to do anything with this tool, it just opens up everything and supports the development. And it's a very small team of people who are supporting and maintaining this. So I would invite you to check that out. Some of the Power Pack features, just to go over this quickly, include improved search. I think also sort of an expanded repertoire of things that you can search for. Obviously, the clipboard history feature that I just showed you, snippets and auto-expanding snippets. So in other words, you can use sort of a keyword that might expand into like today's date or into your entire address. Or what I have is all of my web profiles. I have little shortcuts for that, and I'll show you that. You can control music playbook. Alfredo, interesting. Thank you, Sinan. Obviously, workflows, huge. That in and of itself sort of pays for itself. It allows you to search your contacts to the Apple address book. You can run shell and terminal commands, which I actually use quite a bit. Custom themes, which I'll show you. It's just like, it's crazy that some of this stuff is not, well, of course it should be included by default, but that's because you have to pay for it. The integration of 1Password, which is pretty great. And of course, syncing and backing up your settings. Now, I use Dropbox as the place where I sync and back up my settings. And so that means that if I have Alfred running on multiple computers, you can actually have all the same settings and all the same workflows synced across them. And that's incredibly useful. Obviously, like where you can find and get Alfred if you don't have it, I imagine you probably do, is at alfredapp.com. There's a bunch of great resources, techniques, how-tos there. I use that as a pretty solid resource to get started. Now, I'm going to start showing you some stuff. So now you've had like the long preamble. Let me get into it. Let's see. So pull this over here. So we have Alfred here. Let me pull over a browser window. Okay. So, I'll show you guys this later, but it doesn't matter. So obviously, like one of the first things that you can do is just, search for, you can Google stuff. I think I use G search. Yeah. So like anything so you set up a fallback search. Let me see how that works. I think it's under, is it here, default results? Set up fallback results. Yeah. So sorry, let me walk you through this. One of the things you'll notice is I'm trying to figure this all out as I go. So you'll sort of watch me in figuring out how to use Alfred because I kind of forget, but it's kind of intuitive once you get it. What I want to show you is essentially if you do a search for something and you don't have a workflow or you don't have a custom search or something like that, what does it show as a fallback in case nothing is found? And so if you go under features and then default results, you go to so only show fallbacks when there are no results, or you can show it, intelligently. Then you can set up fallback. So if it doesn't know what it's going to do, you can just add some stuff here. But the way that this would work is let's say if I just, search for Devram, Yasser, what you can see is the fallback is to search Google for Devram, hi Devram. And so that'll obviously just pull up that search, very simple, very straightforward. You can do file search, so across all of your things. I don't really use it too often because I just have far too many files. I'm not going to bother to get into that. Interesting. What is this? I'm not going to talk about this one because I don't know anything about that one either. You can pull in your web bookmarks, your clipboard history. Define and dictionary is cool. So you can do define. Obviously, I have a custom search here, define word. And then I might say, I don't know, is tub thumper a word? I don't know if that's a word. Tub thumper. Tub thumper, yeah, I guess it's a word. Look at that, pulled up the dictionary. So again, it's just a way of navigating. Did it even work? I don't know. Let's ignore that for now. I feel like it's in a song or something. Anyways, it's a way, again, of navigating into different apps and stuff like that. One of the things that I use, let's see, it's a good example. I just kind of want to get into like all the stuff that I use this for, though. Maybe I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to start with themes because I think the themes are pretty interesting. One of the things that I've done, and thank you, by the way, Martin, for mentioning my Dropbox paper theme. That's what this is right here. What I would recommend that you do, if you really want to get into it, is you can actually use custom fonts for your themes. And so that means that they end up looking really nice. I created variants of my Dropbox theme. Actually, let me pull up my themes here, and I'll send you guys the link. Okay. So this is where you can get my Dropbox paper theme. There are two variants. One is the Natto version, which has a free Google font, and then the other one uses the Atlas font. I won't tell you how to extract it from the Dropbox iOS binary, but that might be a place to look if you wanted to get that font. I don't, of course, condone piracy of any sort, but that would be one way to get that. And then, of course, you can also change the configuration of the window to show and hide different elements by default. But I'll just kind of like show you what some of these themes look like. So this is the Atlas version. So using the Atlas font. This is the Natto version. So you can see it's a little bit of a lighter theme there. There's a bunch of themes that Alfred comes with by default. I find them to be actually very hideous. I mean, no offense, Alfred team, but it's just kind of like not that attractive. I also, thank you, Martin. Yes, you got the reference right there. Actually, that's, okay, let's try this. So I built this Hey theme, which is like super chunky, but let's do Genius. So I have a custom search for Genius, and let's do Tub Thumper. Maybe we'll find something there. All right, so Genius, of course, is a place to find lyrics to a song. And so what I just did was I executed a search using Alfred to find, of course, Chumbawamba's 1997 hit, We Are Dating Ourselves. But there you go. That's how we get to this very quickly. I do wonder what it means. It's the 8th from New Labor. Okay, anyways, okay, back to what I was doing. Oh, I made a really cool one. Oh, right. So I made a superhuman theme, attempting to try to, emulate what I saw in Superhuman, using a lot of the same colors and designs and styles. One of the tips, and I'm going to move past this. Oh yeah, I'm working on a Twitter one too. Oh, Synthwave. Synthwave is actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, you can't do glows, so that's why that doesn't have that one. But I'm going to go back to the Dropbox Atlas. Here's a little like secret pro tip. It turns out that that you can actually set different themes in Alfred for light and dark. And I didn't know this, but if you set the light theme when you have the light view enabled or whatever, the light theme activated in macOS, and then you switch in Alfred, like let's say you switch your OS theme to dark, and then you switch the Alfred theme to dark, it'll actually reflect that setting. So it's really hidden, it's hard to find, but if you don't want to have the light version of the theme always visible, then you can change it to something else when it's dark. Okay, so that's themes. Oh, and I guess one thing that I will say about this is it's very easy to create these themes. You really just like, I don't want to fuck this one up. You just kind of like, oh, that one's a default. Here's a sample. Okay, so you can just click and you can right click, I think. Can you right click? Yes, it's gonna beach ball. Wonderful. Because I have too many fonts. That's the problem. And you can basically change the fonts here. So this is how you do this. It's also possible to, I guess I'll show you this too. Let's see what this Cobalt looks like. Thanks for that suggestion. I'm going to pop this open. So you can export this as a file. I'm just going to put this into desktop. Okay, let's get rid of this. Oh, and then, okay. Oh, God, it's hideous. All right, so let's go back here. So one of the things that you can do to search your files is to use the tilde. So the tilde represents your own directory. So if I do tilde, then that's going to pull up my home directory. And now I can go to desktop, and then I can start typing. And now I'm basically where I thought I would be. And if I hold down, let's see, I think it's if I hold down Command and I hit Enter, it should open. What just happened? Okay, it did. It'll actually open that file in Finder. And then what I want to show you is, oh, okay, check this out. I know you could probably do all these things different ways, but part of the idea here is to show how you can sort of hack Alfred to do things for you. And this is, by the way, this is very much like a buffet of things that I'm showing you. One of the things that I did was I created a lot of these toolkits, and one of the ones that I created was something called, well, actually, this is somebody else's, but you can open files with a certain editor, right? And so what I want to do is I want to show you the text in that file that I just created. And so I created a hotkey in this workflow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press that workflow or that hotkey to open this file in Atom. And so that's Command, Option, Control, A. And so what should happen is Atom should launch. Let me see if it's launching. Okay, it's launching. And so now I've basically pulled that file into Atom with a hotkey, with a shortcut. Because what it's doing, I'll show you real quick here. Oh, unfortunately, this is going to be a little code. It's pulling the, it's pulling the selection, right? So whatever I have selected in the operating system, in this case in Finder, and it's passing that file to Atom, which then is opening it up in here. Now, the reason why I wanted to show this to you is because you can see that the Alfred appearance file, which is the theme, is really almost like, it's just a JSON file with a bunch of different colors and fonts and so on. And so when I was creating my Alfred, let's see, Dropbox Lite theme, all I was doing, I'm sorry if you can't see this, was setting the font to a font that I preferred in my theme. So that's one way to get a lot of control over your themes when you're designing them. Okay. Before I get deeper into that, I want to go back to the presentation real quick just to finish off a couple other thoughts and ideas. And if you guys do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I know I'm all over the place, but welcome to my mind. Again, like what's important, I think, for me to communicate is how working with Alfred is really about both a state of mind and a set of expectations, and learning how to keep your hands like on the keyboard. So that's very important. I watch a lot of people who are more like novices with computers, and there's a lot of hunting and pecking and pointing and touching, and it's kind of tedious, right? So one way to think about it is like, the touchpad is lava, and you just kind of want to like keep your hands on the keyboard and move very quickly through all the commands that you're doing. So that's one place to start. The other thing that I've learned in working with Alfred effectively is to pave my own cow paths. What does that mean? Well, the idea of paving a cow path basically is to look at where there's existing behavior. So I'll give you a real example. I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and there was this kind of what was called the cut, this green grassy area in the middle of the university, that students would of course go and hang out and sit on and have lunch. There were walkways, of course, along the side of this beautiful grassy area, and there was one kind of perpendicular walkway across the center of it. You know where people walked? Right diagonally across the grass. And so there was, of course, this big brown, piece of dirt, where everyone walked to get to class. So it would make more sense in that case to pave the student path in that case, because that's where people actually walk, as opposed to where you aspirationally hope people will walk. And so from a similar perspective, what I've learned to do is to observe my own behavior. What sites am I visiting a lot? What searches am I doing a lot? Is there a project that I'm working on frequently, where if I automate some of that, or I kind of observe what I'm doing and I build a little workflow for that, I'll become a lot more efficient. And I'll show you what that means in a second. The other thing to do is to really kind of be fearless with Alfred. It's fairly forgiving, so it's hard to screw up. I find that if you do the simplest thing first, then you can build more complex workflows over time. And with a lot of the toolkits that I built, I start out very simple with one or two things that I wanted to do. And then either I'll reach out to a developer and convince them to help me out and to build some sort of support for something. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. or you just find like a simple way to kind of add maybe 5 or 10% efficiency, which compounds over time. And so, whoops, what happened? And so, oh, right, whoops. So anyways, that's kind of where my web search hacks came from. And I'll show you also my snippets and auto expansion now. So let me, and I apologize if I'm going fast. I think I'll share this recording with you guys afterwards so you can refer to it. I'm probably going to put a course together on this as well, because I realize, like, one, I'm very scattered, and two, like, I'm probably going a mile a minute. You're like, what is going on? I don't even understand. But hence the challenge of this medium currently. In any case, let me show you my web search hacks, because I think this is something that I'm both pretty proud of, and it's also a little bit like, you are mental, dude. Like, what is wrong with you? So one of the things that I seem to do a lot is I do a lot of web searching. I search for a lot of stuff. And going back to, I think it was Martin that might have mentioned the bar. What do you say? Actually, add new features. Oh, yeah. If Dropbox will only add new features to paper, yeah, I hear you on that. So let me just show you. These are, I know it's absurd, but these are all the different custom web searches that I've built. And I've also created a site that lists all of these so that you guys can use them. Yeah, I mean, Devram, by all means, take all the screenshots you like. So what I've done is I basically made these links available to you because every website has slightly different URLs. I use a form of what I call URL hacking in order to figure out what web searches are. And then I basically dump them right into Alfred. And then I also publish them. I have an Airtable. I'll show you kind of like what that looks like on the back end, so that you guys can benefit from them. And then I've also taken to making all these custom icons because I'm so anal about how things look. And so anyways, this is my, so where are we at now? We've got, oh, we're at 200. Oh, we did it. We crossed the 200 mark threshold. Okay, so we've got over 200 custom web searches, which again, I think is totally ridiculous. I've even gotten a few user submissions. And so if you guys have custom web searches that you think I should add, by all means, there is a form up here, suggest a custom search that you can offer. And that would be great. Love to take a look at that. But essentially what this allows me to do is I use an app called Barnotes. It hasn't been updated in a while. I would love to have someone help me out in improving it. But essentially, if I want to make a cocktail, I would ask you, does anybody have a preference for what they want to make a cocktail with? I'll just say gin. Let's go with gin for now. I can do, I'm going to search. So I search bar. And so what you can see is, obviously, like all the apps come up, but then also search bar notes. So I'm going to search bar notes for gin. So what that allows me to do is essentially, oh, that's very embarrassing. They need to clearly fix their cert. I told you it needs some help. Anyways, I trust these guys. So anyways, you can see what I've been able to do is essentially execute that search without having to go to barnotes.co first and then find the search box. Instead, I just use Alfred. So again, keeping my hands on the keyboard, I move very quickly through it. If I want to make a bourbon drink, same thing, right? That's kind of how that works. The other way in which I use this is finding like icons. Oh, this is a really good one. So essentially what a custom web search allows you to do is to put arbitrary text at the end of a URL. Okay, so that's why it's why I talk about this as URL hacking. The reason is because there's a site called Brand. What's it called? BrandFetch. Okay, BrandFetch is really cool. BrandFetch essentially tries to assemble. It's almost like a wiki commons of brand assets. SVGs, which are incredibly useful for doing design work. And so if you go to Brand, like they have a plugin for Sketch if you want that, but on BrandFetch, it says enter a brand name or type of URL. Well, for the most part, I know that I know the brand that I'm looking for, and I know the URL, right? So if I want to get the brand and I'm working in Sketch for, let's say, Instagram, I can do brand. I hit enter, and I type Instagram.com, and it just takes that text and it appends it to the URL here. I don't know if you can see this. And so very quickly, I'm able to get to this page as opposed to just typing it and remembering what the specific incantation is for this search. In a similar way, I can do that with icons. So I have a ton of different searches for icons. So I can search the icon project for, where'd it go? Okay. let's say martini. This is just the theme today. Fernando, great question. So how am I opening Airtable in its own window? Well, okay, this is not a this is not an Alfred tip, but this is a Chrome tip. If I wanted to, let's say Unsplash. So I go to Unsplash, search Unsplash for, let's say martini. Pull this off into its own little window here. Okay, great, right? You know what Unsplash is. I'm going to go to the Unsplash homepage. Now from here, you use the menu and you go to More Tools. And you say Create Shortcut. I had no idea what this was, but if you say Create Shortcut, you can say Unsplash and then open as a window, Create. And what this does is this creates its own separate application under Chrome apps as its own separate docked application. Ta-da! So you can basically make your own kind of site-specific browsers using that little hack. And I find it very useful. Okay. So let's see. So we just went through a bunch of custom web searches. I think, let's see, did I go through? Okay, yeah. So I'll sort of explain how I think about this also. Let me find a good one. Okay, LinkedIn. So this is probably the threshold point when I go from creating just custom web searches to building a toolkit. So LinkedIn actually does allow you to search, even though it seems very obtuse. If you are signed in, if you're signed into the browser. So if I say in, so in is the keyword that I set for LinkedIn, and hit space, you can see that I have a bunch of LinkedIn searches here. So I can search for people, I can search just a general search, I can search for messages, search LinkedIn companies. Let's say I'll search for LinkedIn companies for SuperPeer. Again, this just auto-completes, adds the text to the URL, and should pull up, obviously, the company. Great. Oh, I should be following them. Okay, great. So now I'm following SuperPeer, right? Now, the problem with that is that it looks like I have 6 individual custom web searches. And there's nothing wrong with this. They all work fine. But I want to show you how I use my Twitter toolkit. So actually, let me close this. Who knows what's going on there? Okay. Let me pull up. I'll send you a link to it. So if you guys want to follow along. This, I got to tell you, this workflow, I feel like I'm a little bit mental for creating it, but I use Twitter so much. This is how I tweet the way I do. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so this is my Twitter toolkit. I'm going to make this full screen. Actually, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that still. I'll just maximize the window. Okay. All right. So we get a sense for what is in this toolkit. Okay. Now I went crazy. Basically, yes, Joseph, I will share that. Navish, the Airtable itself is not shared, but I will share the link to the listing. Okay. Now, why is this so complex? Well, this is so complex for a number of reasons. The number one reason is because I support using the native Twitter Mac app, which is a Catalyst app. I support searching within the web. And then I also support Tweetbot. Now, Tweetbot doesn't support all the same URL schemes as the Twitter app does. And so it's not a one-to-one ratio. But what basically I'm doing is essentially, I'll show you. So if I want to, let's say, search for new app icons, okay? So I use, obviously, the hashtag, and I say, okay, new app icon. Now, I've done a couple things. So one, you'll see that the pound symbol is obviously used for hex colors, and so that's why you can see down below there's a bunch of different colors. But I have these 2 searches, keywords for searching on Twitter. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to search Twitter. Actually, I'm going to show you something. Okay, I'll start here. Search Twitter for hashtag new app icon. Why did that pull up over here? It's over. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Okay. So obviously you can see one thing happened there. Let me make sure you guys are still here. Okay, cool. Martin, I will show you how I have achieved something along those lines. Great. So what I have here is essentially a search across all of Twitter for this hashtag, which of course I use. Another thing that I've done is I've added the keyword my being sort of like the contextual space for my content. So if I use the keyword my and I do space, now I can search my tweet for a hashtag, search for my recent tweets. So for example, if I want to find the tweet where I was mentioning Alfred, well, here's how I would do that. I would say, search for my recent tweets that include Alfred app. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, some windowing issues here. Okay, and so you can see that it's pulled up my most recent tweets in which I mentioned Alfred app, right? Now, what if I wanted to, let's see, what would be another good one? I want to find all the tweets where I'm talking about people who want my Instagram username. Well, I can search my tweets for IG Chris. And so this is for hashtag IG Chris. Now, of course, if you don't use Twitter as much as I do, then this is not going to be that useful. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is how you can sort of observe your own behavior and then create a toolkit or workflow that meets your own needs. One of the things, the other things that I have here is I use the exclamation symbol to be able to view my notifications across different services, right? So I can go quickly to my Super Peer notifications, Facebook notifications, etc. One of the other things, Martin, you asked about tweeting. I also have created something called the new cloud documents workflow, which I might just simplify to like new, but now I say new, and then I can tweet with text. This might be broken because I think I need to type the text. Just say hi, Martin. And so now basically it's using Twitter's intents to execute a new pre-composed tweet with my text in it. So I think Twitter shut that API down because they hate developers, but regardless, now you can use it for that. So that's one of the things that I've done there. And you can kind of like browse around to get a sense for what else is here. One of the other toolkits that I'm building is a tool for finding my own web profiles. I haven't released this one yet, but I think it's called Find Me Online. And what I'm using here is a list filter, and I'll show you what a list filter does in a second. But if I say me, now basically you can see all my different profiles across different places. So if I want to go to my, let's say my Substack profile, boom, just like that. And the other thing that's cool, I think, is if I press the Option key, I can copy that URL to the clipboard. So if someone's like, hey, what's your Medium profile? I'm like, cool. I just pull up me, I hit Option, and then I hit Enter. And now if I paste this in, now it's going to go to my Medium profile. So it's a really fast, okay, that's apparently not my profile. Maybe it's with an @ Great. So now I'll show you how I fix that. So I will go in here. Now, one of the things that I've done, and this is getting a little bit technical, I suppose, but workflows allow you to set variables. And so a variable for me is my username, right? So when I release this workflow, anybody can put whatever username they usually have across different social media platforms, and that'll set the default. And then, of course, if you have a different username on different profiles, you can change it to customize it to that link. But the idea is that if your username was Bob Schmo, you can put Bob Schmo in there. And now, by using variables, when I go into this list filter, you can see that it's an argument. I know this is it's a little bit confusing because it's like programmerese, but I'm using a variable to just pull in my username and to append it again to the link where my profile lives. And so the problem with Medium is that it doesn't take just the username, it actually needs an @ in front of it. And so now if I just add the @ and I hit save, now when I view me, and I'm also one trick, you can see down, you're not gonna be able to see it here, but like on the right-hand side, there are these like command and the numbers. Again, if you want to keep your hands on the keyboard, I'm just going to use Command 5, and that's going to open my Medium profile very quickly without having to like press the space bar or get down to anything else. Let me see what else I can show you real quick here. Let me see. Oh, crap. There's a whole like snippets thing. Let me show you snippets real quick, because snippets are like really badass. So I've showed you how to like navigate the web. I've showed you a bunch of like ways of getting your custom web searches to work for you. Snippets are very interesting. Let me see. Someone here. Yeah, okay, fine. We'll just do this. So with snippets, one of the things that you can do is you can use a prefix to kind of scope a set of, I guess, auto expansions. By that, what I mean is that when I type, in this case, 2 periods and then a keyword, it'll expand into something bigger. And so let me show you what that means. In Sketch, I use bounding box as a layer name a lot. So what I did was I just set period, BB, and that replaces the text with bounding box. I can also do the same thing. I use 2 right open arrows for my profiles. So if I say this, and then super, that changes into my super peer link. And then if I do the same thing with TW, that's Twitter, do the same thing with Facebook, right? So it just becomes really easy to expand from these snippets into other things. Yes, that is Fateh. That's a really good one. There's a bunch of really good ones out there. And if you guys have other resources that you want to share, by all means, post them in the chat. I'm going to wrap up real soon. There's so much more that I could show you and tell you about, but you know, I want to respect your time as well. Okay, so I showed you the snippets and auto expansion. And then I think this is sort of like the story of that Twitter toolkit. You know, I built something that I needed for myself, and then I tried to figure out how I can make it useful for more people. And then I just put it up on GitHub and shared it. Oh, the one that I'll show you that you guys haven't seen and that Devram hasn't seen and the team hasn't seen is that I'm building one. And again, I'd love to have the team help me out with this for SuperPeer. So this is a SuperPeer toolkit. And what I'm basically doing is I'm using a list filter. So these are different objects that the workflow exposes. But I'm also mixing and matching just like URLs. And so like when I say me, that's actually, I mean, there's a lot of them in here. Maybe if I type me super, nope, that doesn't work. Okay, then you can see here, view my SuperPeer profile is coming from here. So you can see me, I have the text. Oh, and so this is another thing that I'm doing for these toolkits because I'm making so many of them. I'm actually using a variable to store the service name. So that way I don't have to change the text in all of these because I keep adding features in all my workflows that are pretty consistent. If I wanted to, let's say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say super, and then I hit enter. And so now this is coming from that list filter. I'll show you what this looks like. Good, I hope so. Where is, oh, this is the list filter. Okay, so see what's happening here. I'm using a keyword, SuperPeer. The argument is optional. And then essentially I'm just listing all the different places and features that I want to expose. So these are all you know, pretty consistent. And so one of the things that I want to do, I'll show you this here. Okay. I'm getting a little out of order, but regardless. Anyway, so Alfred Forum is a really good resource. Packle.org has a bunch of workflows. I don't find it to be like that reliable. It's really not being maintained anymore, but it is a sort of canonical place of finding stuff. You can do a search on GitHub for stuff. And of course, I've shared my resources, which include workflows and themes. And we could have a discussion, but we're kind of out of time. But I do want to sort of end on one thing, and I want to make this all tie together for you. One, thank you for showing up for my first live stream. I'll get better at this over time. I'll probably slow down and try to do fewer things. But I do want to leave you guys, if you guys want to talk to me about this stuff, I want to give you a discount on a call with me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, let's see, where'd it go? Maybe I screwed this up here. Okay. So let's see if I can make this happen live. Super. Okay. So I'm going to create a discount code. Cool. What I said was hack Alfred. What do you think? 20%, 25% off? Hack Alfred discount code. We'll do, sure, you guys 25%, not 125%. like a bug. 24% to, I'm going to say to this to a product hunt call and to an hour-long consult. And let's say this is good until the end of the month. Okay, super. Can't show you the rest of my discount codes, but you guys can use Hack Alfred for this. Any SEO related, I mean, let me show you something. So if I were to do, I think it's WF is a workflow search, like a workflow for searching workflow. If I do workflow SEO, I think what'll happen is it'll actually search. Okay, so there's an SEO checker right there. I don't know what this is. I'll pull it up and see. Oh, crazy. So it actually just downloaded the workflow. Let me show you what workflow that is. So it's this one right here. Okay, so there's a website called alfredworkflow.com, and that's where you can find some SEO related ones. Let's see. Here's the GitHub repo for that one. Nice, cool. Yeah, so that's one way to sort of get some stuff out of this. And again, like I'll show you, the Alfred forum has a place where you can go and you can do a search. Like if I do actually for a search. So if I search here for SEO, maybe that'll pull up some stuff. Martin, I appreciate that. Martin, I don't know if you know, oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, that's the website search. If you search in the forum, maybe you'll find something. But there's the native paper Dropbox app, and they are doing a few things in there, but it's not, I agree with you. It's kind of feels a little slow. Okay, cool. So here's a bunch of SEO stuff in the forum. I'll just share this link with you guys. For cloud search, well, again, if I do this and I say cloud search, nothing there. Let's see, maybe it's under forum. Nope. Means I need to have a search for the Alfred forum. Okay, so let's go add this. And then this will be the last thing that I do. Don't think, yeah, so there's no open search here. So we just put the query just like that. Search Alfred forum for query. And then I'll say Alfred. And then there's my icons. There's all the icons that I made. Say, oh, it's under Alfred. Okay, cool. Now we can search the Alfred forum for cloud search. Nothing so far. Yep, you got it, guys. Okay, well, if you have any, I can stay around for a couple more minutes if you guys have other questions. But I could keep going on this for all day, and I just don't know how much of this is useful. But by all means, I really appreciate you guys showing up for this. My first little web stream here. Hopefully it was somewhat informative and useful. Actually, let me see if I have a link for feedback. Yeah, okay. I'll send you guys this link to my feedback form. If you guys do want to leave any feedback or get in touch with me, you probably know where to find me, how to find me. You got me in chat here. But anyways, really appreciate it. And I'll get your emails, and I'll send you guys a link to the recording as well, so that you guys have it. And maybe I'll do this again sometime. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.